How y'all doing? For this review, I'm going to go over a couple of books that takes place on a board game. Board game which I somewhat reviewed recently. Well, more specifically, showed off my miniature collection. I collected the box game all expansions and showed off all the miniatures fully painted. Reviews you can find out somewhere else. The game today I'm talking about is Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress. Unfortunately, at the time of this video, Games Workshop was pretty much done with this. They came up with the base game, which right here, they've done all the expansions, and when it comes to their specialty games, they're not like regular Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Their main games they're going to keep going and keep revising. Specialty games tend to come and go through various amounts of times. It could be for a few years. Blackstone Fortress came out in 2018. It's 2021 I'm doing this, and they're pretty much done. And there are some games like Warhammer Quest Cursed City, unless word comes out, that one just came and went. Online orders and whoever got it, they were the lucky ones. Well, digressing a bit, so Warhammer Quest, of course, came with a sample chapter by Darius Hinks, part of a novel, which I'm going to review right here. Now, not uncommon for Games Workshop to bring out novels or anthologies associated with whatever their settings are. If you go to the end of a Barnes & Noble, go to the science fiction and fantasy section, at the end of the basic alphabetized sections of that area, you'll find at the end expanded universe sections. That's where you'll find your Doctor Who, that's where you'll find your Forgotten Realms or any D&D, Star Trek, Star Wars, and of course Games Workshop related novels and anthologies set in their worlds. Okay, digressing a bit. So, what's Blackstone Fortress about? Well, it's a story that takes place, of course, in the Blackstone Fortress. The main character is Janus Draik, who goes to Precipice. Precipice is a special docking area and trading zone. In the game, you go here in between missions where you can recover, gain some, take your treasures and gain some new items and what have you. In the world, in the story here is a special docking area where aliens and humans meet together, and this is where they trade, rest, and what have you. And it's a stopping point right before they go to Blackstone Fortress and explore where they can of that. Janus Draik shows up in the story, already been an explorer there before. He's gained word that there's a special vault called the Ascura's Vault, and he believes that if he gets access to this vault, he will have full control of the Blackstone Fortress, which to any explorer who's been there, it tends to take him wherever. It has a mind of its own. Some say it is partially alive. Nobody knows its secrets yet, but Janus Draik has heard that if he gets hold of Ascura's Vault, he will have control, and if he has control, he can turn the Blackstone Fortress over to humanity, and for his own purposes. So of course, assisted by his second in command, Isola. Bear in mind, he's a rogue trader, in case you know. There's a special type of people who go explore around searching for old tech or whatever they can find for the Imperium. So him and Isola go to Precipice, and they end up meeting a recruit named Grek, who's also one of the characters in Blackstone Fortress. Now, through him, you need his help to find a special pilot to get to a special entranceway into the Blackstone Fortress and to the Ascura's Vault. Well, after a series of after an adventure trying to get her back, they find out that they not only need her, but they also need Thaddeus, another character in Blackstone Fortress. He's a special Imperial priest, very fanatical. Now, they need the pilot to get to this, get to the Ascura's Vault. Unfortunately, the Ascura's Vault has a special mechanisms that affects people mentally. They go insane. In fact, when they find Thaddeus, who is the only one who has been there before and knows where it's at, and has the notes to do it, he's affected by the Ascura's Vault's defense mechanism, so he's partially, insane. Now, after a special convincing, sorry for my words there, he convinces Thaddeus to come with him again to find it. Thaddeus has his own agenda about what he wants in the Blackstone Fortress. And of course he has Pius Vorn, who is his assistant there, basically a female zealot, whose main weapon is a flamethrower attached to a chainsword. Basically just a really long chainsaw. And let's see. Now he also, here's the thing. If he can get Thaddeus sane enough throughout the adventure, he could, he could lead the way. But what's going to who's going to help against the defense mechanisms of Skir's Vault? Well, there's another character. This one's not in the game itself. At first, for those who played the game may wonder why is it did not use the other character involved. Well, I think they made it special in the story. This is a noble named Kaval. He's a navigator, one of the navigator houses. And navigators are a special type of mutants who have a third eye that allows them to help navigate through warp, that helps them with their long distance travel. And they also have certain psychic abilities which they can find useful in counteracting the defense mechanism of the Obscura's Vault. So that's who we have here. We got Janus Draik, the rogue trader. His assistant is Sola. He has Aldous the pilot. I didn't mention her name there. Thaddeus the priest, Pius Vorn, and Corval and Grek. Those are your main characters in this expedition. A lot more because characters in a typical group. In Blackstone Fortress, you carry up to 4 characters at a time. 5 if you count Rouse and Rain, but let's not get into that. Now, of course, the Obscura's Vault is already being held by the enemy of the story here. The prologue in this tells you, sets up who the enemy is bound to be. It's a rogue psyker who is seeking vengeance on his imperial superiors. He was a rogue psyker of the Imperial Guard, and after events of the prologue, he wants revenge against the leader who screwed him over. And that's going to be the start of the one of the main villains. Basically, it's going to be the main characters versus agents of chaos. Now, everyone in this, you as they go along, you can see a lot of the events, meet some of the monsters or how the Blackstone Fortress reacts. You get a good idea about that. All the characters have their own agenda. Corval, is again, that's illustrated in this character right here. That's Janus Draik, Pius Vorn. That's Corval. He's a navigator. He joins up instantly, and of course it's pretty obvious he has something against Janus Draik, and that's probably why they used, with his backstory, you understand why they use him and not Esperno Lacano. Sorry, I forgot the name. There's another character who's also navigator, Esperno, House Lacano, and I guess they didn't want to mix up their stories behind that. Otherwise, it probably used it. So again, it's a pretty good straightforward story, and of course, it doesn't end here. It's not. Despite how it may sound, when this book ends, obviously, it's not going to. It's good. The adventures continue. It's not going to be. It's not going to be cut and ending like that. So not a bad read for those of you who are interested in who don't have time to play the game but are interested in the concept. This is not a bad story to get into on that, but it's not much. It's not extravagant or anything. So there's that. But there's another book. Let me tell you about that. The other book is, of course, Vaults of Obsidian. This is an anthology, a series of short stories that take place in the Blackstone Fortress. I guess you could put it right after the events of Blackstone Fortress, the novel itself. And a lot of these stories are good, although there's one I'll get into that I think is kind of incoherent. But again, these are various stories. Most of them you can get done in a lunch break, within an hour-long lunch break in most cases. They deal with not just the main heroes of the Blackstone Fortress, but also other characters as well that they made up. Some of even the villains even. Let me go over some of the example stories I got on a list right here. I'm not going to review all of them, but most of them. We got The Talisman of All by Darius Hinks. This involves 2 Dark Eldar brothers. One of them's controlling the other. Trying to find out trying to find an area called the Blood Anvil, which supposedly grants immortality. So, and another one is Shapes Pent in Hell by Josh Reynolds. This involves one of the other characters, a sentient machine called UR-025. Throughout his exploration of Blackstone Fortress, he finds another intelligent machine like him that has more sinister motives. Then we got Fates and Fortress by Thomas Parrott. This one doesn't involve one of the heroes of Blackstone Fortress. It's a thief who steals an item from Janus Draik. That's this guy in the middle right here is one of the heroes of Blackstone Fortress. He steals an item from him, and he goes on his own expedition with a group. And in the end, he's trying to find out this what this secret item does, and what his fate is, and all that. Past in Flames by J.C. Steins. This one is involves the Eldar sniper, the Eldar ranger in this group of Amelin's Shadow Guide. Team with a Dark Eldar. You kind of get a little bit of backstory there, where they're on a mission against the Imperial Guard. This one, we got Negavolt by Nicholas Wolfe. Now, this is talked about one of the types of villains. One of the monsters you fight in Blackstone Fortress are called Negavolt cultists. These are servants of the Mechanicus, which are machine-worshipping cults, stationed on Mars. And, of course, Chaos has his way of warping any aspect of it, and Negavolt cultists is one that happens when Chaos corrupts one of the Adeptus Mechanicus type people. Now, this tells the story of a man who turns to a Negavolt cultist to avenge himself from Adeptus Mechanicus who betrayed him. It's a pretty simple revenge story. You get his background and how he became that. And let's see, we got Man of Iron by Guy Haley. This is another story with UR-025. He's on an expedition with a few tech priests who doesn't know who he is, and UR-025 is trying to help him while trying to maintain his secrets because he doesn't want them to know. And we've got The Beast Inside by Darius Hinks. This one I actually like. Janus Draik, Grek the Recruit, and a rival rogue trader are on an expedition to try and hunt down Ambol. Apparently, there are those who want to... Ambol is this huge, giant insectoid monster, which is actually one of the expansions represented by a miniature in Blackstone Fortress. Now, this is a very dangerous monster, but apparently there's a bounty for a live one. Janus Draik is trying to prevent that from happening, but the rival rogue trader is trying to get one alive. And you see the adventures trying to go through that. Then we have The Last of the Longhorns by Nick Kime. This is an origin story of Rouse and Rain, which are two ratlings. And to give you an idea what a ratling is, bear in mind Warhammer 40,000 is from... Games Workshop, which is, basically they took Warhammer, which is their fantasy line, and their fantasy line will have all the humans, elves, dwarves, and halflings at one point, which are, of course, hobbits from Tolkien. So, and when they went to Warhammer 40,000, they took that and converted it into a science fiction setting. So you have your humans in various forms. The elves are basically they've converted to Eldar, which is basically space elves. Dwarves were squats, and of course they stopped making those a long time ago. And halflings became ratlings, and that's what these are. Two ratlings, and they're a larcenous group of twin brothers who one of them has a sniper rifle, one of them has a grappling hook. They go around exploring for their riches and all that. And this is a story about how they came to be before they got to the Blackstone Fortress and what their origin story is. Now, the one story that I found very inconsistent is Purity is a Lie by Gav Thorpe. And this is one of those that could have probably been corrected if the two authors met up together to keep it more consistent. The story is pretty simple. Thaddeus, another character from Blackstone Fortress, the priest who is also in the novel itself, he reluctantly joins a group with Janus Draik, along with Amelin's Shadow Guide, who is she's the Eldar sniper, and Esperno of House Locarno, who's also a mutant navigator. So they go on a series of expeditions. The story kind of leaves off with no conclusion to their expedition. It focuses on Thaddeus, and here's where the problem is. You see, we get an impression from Blackstone Fortress that Janus Draik meets up with Thaddeus in almost the first time, if I recall. It feels like the first time they ever met. Of course, when they met, Thaddeus was a bit insane from the Escuros Vault defense mechanism. So if you could make the argument they may have met before, but he had a sanity back then. But then it also lies to another inconsistent problem. You see, in the book, they are teamed up with a Crute. In the story of the short story Purity is a Lie, Thaddeus is reluctant to join the expedition because they're hooked up with a mutant and an alien. Now he's an Imperial priest, which according to Imperium of Man, of the God Emperor of mankind, they do not trust the heretics, the mutants, or the aliens. And if you're of that religious sect, you are very strongly about that. Thaddeus should know that many groups joined together like this before. He joined up with the last one. It's a bit inconsistent of that. It's not a bad story, although it's kind of an open-ended story, but it doesn't correlate with the novel that goes with it. That's about the only story I find that had a problem with that. All the other stories are pretty good. So there you go. You got Blackstone Fortress, and you got Vaults of Obsidian. There's another one, which I think already came out in hardback, but in a couple months, you can probably get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, which is Ascension, which will end the Blackstone Fortress book line. So at least you only have to worry about a trilogy. Hopefully I'll get to that and read it, and maybe hopefully review in the future. Ascension's in reference to the final expansion set to the Blackstone Fortress, and it sounds like it. So there you go. With these two, hopefully I'll get the third one soon. Despite the fact, these are big book, big size books, larger. I don't know what has gotten current books, particularly Games Workshop, Black Library Publishing in particular. You used to have paperbacks used to be this size, and then they want to make them slightly bigger. I don't know if they want to increase the print size for those who have a hard time reading smaller print or what have you, but it's hard to fit these in a lot of people's pockets compared to old-fashioned paperbacks, but that's their decision. Despite what they look like, they're fairly quick reads. The writing style is pretty straightforward. This is only like 320 some or 32 pages for the novel, and this one's a little bit longer, but the short stories are nice quick reads there, and there's only 12 of them, and I got through most of them right here. So there you go. Blackstone Fortress and Vaults of Obsidian. For those who are interested in that aspect of the Warhammer 40,000 world, they're not bad reads to go through. They're not Isaac Asimov or anything, but you're not looking for that when you read these type of books. So thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.